Welcome to Unity of Port St. Lucie's Sunday service. I see new faces here. Welcome to all the newcomers. Everyone, please stand and join us as we sing our opening song, One Light. I invite you to sit back and relax as we join our hearts and minds this morning in our prayer for inner peace. Creator of all that is, I open my heart and mind this morning to the presence of God that is within me and in everyone and everything, that one power and one presence. I let God's peace fill my being. In this presence, I am peaceful, poised, confident, and strong. I relax in God's loving care and release all my cares, knowing that God is upholding me and sustaining me in all that I do. God's presence calms me, quiets the storms around me, and leads me to a place of perfect peace. As I center myself in that peaceful presence this morning, I let go of every concern and relax in the safety of God's love and in the love of those around me. I find Unity of Port St. Lucie a sanctuary of love and peace, and I am open and receptive to receive all it has to soothe my mind and soul this day. And so it is. Amen. Join me in our mission statement to develop our spiritual connection with God through prayer, education, and service. Our vision, Unity of Port St. Lucie is an expanding community for personal healing and spiritual growth. And now if you join us in our congregational song, We Are Guided by the Light. Miss Shanetta is going to read our daily word today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The word for today is faith. With the assurance of faith, I move ahead with confidence. Faith is my guiding light. It keeps me hopeful when I'm tempted to doubt, the cheerful, when I might otherwise feel gloomy. Faith tells me that even when the sky appears cloudy, the sun is still shining brightly above the clouds. Faith gives me a secure footing in the present as I plan for the future. Faith is the assurance that I am never alone, that everything I dream and do is divinely inspired. Every step I take in the direction of my aspirations is fueled by faith that they can come to pass. All of the wisdom, power, love, and strength of God are mine to express as I only can. Leaving timidity and hesitancy behind, I use these divine attributes boldly with confidence. Faith shows me the way forward. And in Hebrews 11:1, it says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." Let us repeat together the affirmation for today. With the assurance of faith, I go ahead with confidence. Let us now prepare for our meditation by singing Surely the Presence. In this place. I invite you, friends, one and all, those of you sitting here and those of you watching at home, to close your eyes just for a bit and to relax deeply, to allow the chair you're sitting on or the sofa to support you fully. Allow it to do its job. Let go. Let go of the need to hold on to anything, including parts of your body. Relax, release. Feel whatever tension you might have had in your neck and shoulders, feel it dissolve. As you begin to focus within yourself, do it by your breath. Concentrate on the air that you take into your body, the cool air of the air-conditioned space in which you sit. Cool air. Feel it moving through your nostrils. And imagine it moving into your body,
bringing with it precious nutrients, life-sustaining oxygen, knowing that it goes exactly where it needs to go so that we might live and breathe and have our being on this planet together right now. Focus on your breath. Notice that when you release it, it's warmer. You've warmed your breath, and you send it out now, and it includes particles of you. Yes, particles of you. And it leaves your body and it moves throughout the room. And it doesn't stop there, it moves outside of the room. And it moves into the community, and it moves around the globe. And it mingles with my breath and your neighbor's breath, and we become one. One life, one breath, one magnificent universe. Breathe into that, friends. Set aside the smallness of your own life, the seeming smallness of your own life for a moment, and imagine the bigger picture. The mysterious, never-ending energy field that we share. And the fact that we join ourselves together by our breath. And we pause right now and we just sit in the wonder of that, in the wonder of our oneness and our connection through our breath. I invite you to take a few moments now in the silence together in the silence. And then very slowly, very, very slowly and very, very gently, begin to return your attention to the outer. And bring this experience with you. Bring this lightness of spirit with you. Bring this remembrance of the connection we have to one another that transcends any political differences, any difference in skin tones, any difference in gender preference, any difference at all. This connection, this transcendent connection we have as brothers and sisters in one universe, breathing the same air and experiencing love. So when you're ready, open up your eyes and join us together as we sing about this bond of love we share. I came up here earlier and turned on these little lights because I thought that I was going to be using a meditation from the book I brought, and then lo and behold, I downloaded different instructions. So I didn't need them after all. Good morning, everyone. Wow, look at you. What a magnificent group of people. Probably the best looking group of people in the county, I'm thinking. Right here and right now. The loveliest, most loving, precious, generous group of people in the entire county. Now, I'm before I start what's mine to do today, well, this is mine to do today, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing it. I want to say hello to my neighbors. I've got 4 neighbors sitting there. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. 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 If you get upset, see me later. Talk to me later. If anything I say pushes your buttons, talk to me later. They know what I'm talking about. And then, from a dinner party that I attended last week, a couple of more people back there. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming and checking us out. And Aggie, welcome back. Yay. It's so good to see you. How exciting is that, right? Yeah. Yeah. Welcome home, honey. Wow. So my talk title, oh, no, wait a minute. Hold up. I have a baby brother sitting back there. Look at me. Moving on without saying anything. He's already laughing and blushing because he doesn't like the attention. Not only my baby brother, but my favorite sister-in-law right next to him, Dale and Annie from Key Largo. Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. We've been having a great time this weekend. And everybody else, you know I love you. And if I've forgotten to point out to mention your name, I apologize. So the talk title today is Burn Like an LED. And it's so cool to look over here and see this clear, fresh image. Look at the difference in the image quality between that little setup there on the wall and this one. I'm told that Jeff Shepard had this idea to put the screen on rollers like that so we could move it around, and Paul nudged him to make it happen because I was throwing a hissy fit about it, and nobody likes it when I throw hissy fits, and so thank you guys. That's just amazing. That's amazing. So the title is Burn Like an LED. Have you ever seen one of those old-fashioned light bulbs or an Edison light bulb that when you turn on has the filament inside that makes an orange light? I love those things. Oh my goodness, I think they're beautiful. So I chose it to represent my talk today because today I want to talk about the spiritual power of zeal. And the color that represents zeal in our teachings is orange. So how perfect is that? So I say burn like an LED. Because when we're on our game and we're exercising our power of zeal, we light up all the dark places magnificently. We're pretty when we let our light shine, right? Just like those kinds of light bulbs. So for those of you who may not know it, Unity's co-founder taught that we have spiritual powers. We have spiritual powers. And so for this entire year, the first Sunday of every month, I focus on one of them. So this is October, first Sunday in October. Can you believe it? I'm still trying to wrap myself around the fact that there are pumpkins out and stuff for Halloween. We barely turned to October when that happened, by the way. You know, next week, Christmas stuff will come out probably. Oh my God, it's already out. Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so, oof. Zeal. The power of zeal. It's an old-fashioned word, isn't it? A very old-fashioned word, but I like to say it. I like the way it rolls off my tongue. I like that Z, zeal. I don't have a lot of Z words in my vocabulary, so I like saying it. It's not a word we use very much these days, but it's a lovely word. The dictionary defines zeal as enthusiasm, fervor, eagerness, So you all know what those things mean. Those are the words we use instead of zeal most of the time. In churches, customarily, in our brother and sister Christian churches, when pastors talk about zeal, they generally refer to Paul as the representative of zeal in the Bible. Paul was a zealous guy, you know, by his own admission. By his own admission. He uses the word frequently, actually. You might remember that in the Bible, his name was Saul before it was Paul. Does that ring a bell? So his name was Saul, and as Saul, he was so enthusiastic about persecuting Christians that he had a reputation that spread afar. He would do things that others didn't have the nerve to do, or the audacity to do, or the stupidness to do, by actually killing Christians, for example. He was zealous about the fact that Christians needed to be stamped out. That was his mission in life, and his name was Saul. In a letter that he wrote to Christians during his ministry as a Christian, and I'll get to that in a minute, in Galatians, he actually said this about himself. He said, in those days, when he was a zealot persecuting Christians, and his name was Saul, that's what he means by in those days, I was advancing in Judaism beyond most of my age. Yeah? Maybe he had a little ego, I don't know. I was advancing in Judaism beyond most of my age, and I was extremely zealous. There it is. Extremely zealous. And that's not the only time he uses the word. So here he is. His name is Saul. He's a zealot. He kills, persecutes Christians wherever he finds them, stamping them out because he perceives them to be a threat to Judaism, like most of his people. And then he has this come to Jesus experience, right? On the road to Damascus. Most people are familiar with that story. He has a come to Jesus experience. And during that experience, he's redirected, completely redirected, and changes his name to Paul. Saul becomes Paul. The really interesting thing about this is his zealousness, his zeal doesn't wane. He continues to be every bit as zealous as he was as Saul, except now he's zealous about teaching Jesus' message, spreading it as far and wide as he can. And he does it enthusiastically and persistently for the rest of his life. Historically, the letters that survive that he wrote are some of the really juiciest stuff in the entire Bible. There are Christians who don't call themselves that, of course. That's a word that modern man made up. There are Christians meeting in homes all over the land, talking about this guy, Jesus, and his messages. You know, they're getting together and comparing notes and discussing what they heard him say or what someone else heard him say and shared with them. And Paul's their consultant. Paul travels constantly from small group to small group to small group, answering their questions, counseling them, encouraging them, supporting them, loving on them, sending them letters, and many of those letters survived. One of the cool things about Paul's ministry is when he's doing this, when he's running around supporting all these small groups of people meeting each other's homes, he has stopped to a great extent being directed by his ego. You can see a difference in his tone and his behavior. And now all of a sudden he's being led by his heart. He doesn't take all the credit for his ideas any longer, but he credits God. In another of his letters, he says this, quote, Paul, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that the gospel I preach is not of human origin. I didn't receive it from any man, nor was I taught it. Rather, I received it by revelation. By revelation. meaning inspiration, meaning download. You understand? I think that's very, very cool. Undoubtedly, Paul recognized the role of zeal in his life. He recognized the role that zeal played in his life. He uses the word repeatedly in his letters. In a letter in the book of Romans, for example, he says this is a quote, "Love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor, do not lag in zeal." Right? Zeal. Spiritual term, spiritual power that we're born with. It's part of who we are. My objective this year in mentioning these spiritual powers is to awaken them in you, to encourage you to acknowledge them, and then consciously practice using them. When I think of zeal, though, personally, I don't think about Paul. To be honest, I don't think about the Bible. I love that example, don't get me wrong, but that's not my go-to thought. When I think about zeal, friends, this is what I think about. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that need to be done by me. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, when he was 92 years old, said that on the grounds at Unity Village when he is walking from one building to another, being followed by a group of admirers, writing down every word he spoke. 92. That's what I think of. That's my favorite Fillmore quote of all of them. I think that's utterly remarkable at 92 to feel that way, to fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm. In one of his books, the book I'm referring to is the one that he wrote about our spiritual powers, he defines zeal, and he does it this way. Let me share his words with you. Zeal is the impulse to go forward, the urge behind all things. Without zeal, stagnation, inertia, and death would prevail. Man without zeal is like a steam engine or an electric motor without a current. Energy is zeal in motion. I love that. I love that. You get a sense of what spiritual zeal is. He went on in the same book, though, to caution us about zeal a little bit. Just a little bit. I want you to consider this. These are his words again. He says, never repress the impulse, the force, the zeal welling up in you. Never repress it. Commune with it in spirit. Commune with it in spirit and praise it for its energy and efficiency. At the same time, analyze and direct its course, because zeal alone without intelligence, without discretion, may produce undesirable results. Well, I can relate. And I bet you can too, as soon as I explain that. So let's look at zeal can, first of all, be underdeveloped. Have you ever found yourself at a place where it was impossible to start anything? Am I the only one in the room? Hello. It doesn't necessarily mean you suffer from chronic depression. We have peaks and valleys, highs and lows in life, right? That's one of the things that makes life so delicious. And we all experience it from time to time. It's just impossible to start anything, or conversely, it's impossible to finish anything. Have you had that? I've had a project on the side of my garage floor waiting for me for 3 months. I just don't want to do it. I look at it every time I park my car, and then I quickly turn my head. I was going to get my brother to do it while he was here, but I didn't have the nerve to ask. What do you do when you find yourself in that kind of situation, friends? Well, I'm going to encourage you to use Unity's most talked about, preached about, taught tool, and that is denial and affirmation. I encourage you to do this because, practically speaking, we teach people that there are tools to handle such highs and lows in life, and one of them is using denials and affirmations. So an example is this. You write yourself a little denial, you make it short and sweet and to the point. And it goes like this, for example, on the screen. Nothing prevents me from exercising zeal. Nothing keeps me from zeal. Make it your own, but keep it short. And it's not enough to just say it. You have to mean it. So if you have to repeat it, so be it, right? You say it, you repeat it, you mean it. Nothing, friends, nothing keeps you from exercising your zeal. Nothing. Except this little thing up here, right? And then you follow it up with an affirmation, which is a positive statement that speaks the truth with a capital T. Like this: I have more than enough zeal to do what is mine to do. I have more than enough zeal to do what is mine to do. So I put them on the screen so that you could copy them or take a picture of them and use them if it serves you. So we use denials and affirmations to help us over those bumps when we feel our zeal is underdeveloped temporarily. Zeal can be misdirected. You might use your power of zeal, or be tempted to gain something, to gain power, for example. You might use it to persuade other people. You might use it to acquire things at the expense of other people. I have a funny story that illustrates this point, I think. I believe that all of you, except Jada, are old enough to remember the days when... Hi, Jada. I think all of you are old enough to remember the days when vacuum salesmen came to the door. Yes? Raise your hand if you don't remember. Fibber? Don't really? You do remember. Okay. Yeah, so they used to come to the door. I remember it was an Electrolux salesman when I was a child and my mother let them in. This is a funny story. So there was a new vacuum cleaner salesman. He knocked on the door of the first house on the street. A lady answered the door. And before she could speak, he walked in and enthusiastically dumped a big black plastic bag of cow poop on her floor. Dried up, I'm sure, you know. And he said to her, "Madam, if I don't clean this up with the use of this new machine, I'm going to eat this," S-H-I-T. "I'm going to eat this if I don't clean it up with this machine." And she looked at him and said, "Do you want chili sauce or ketchup with that?" And he looked at her bewildered and he said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Well, the electricity's off." Sometimes our zeal is misdirected, friends. Yeah, sometimes we use it for all the wrong reasons, and watch out, because the universe might bite you in the butt. Sometimes we misdirect our zeal by focusing on the end game. And when sometimes we focus on the end game, we miss a whole bunch of stuff along the way, right? There's a very, very familiar, some of you have heard before, Zen story that illustrates this point. There was a young man who was seeking a famous martial artist with whom he wanted to study. So the young man meets with him and he tells the master of his desire. He says, "I want to become the best martial artist in the world." So he says, "Sir, how long will I need to study?" And the master said, "Oh, at least 10 years. And the young man was thinking 10 years is far too long. He was looking for something a lot faster than that. So he says, Master, how long if I really applied myself and studied harder than anybody else? And the master looked at him and said, probably 20 years. And the young man was perplexed about why working harder should double his time, until his master made his next comment, and then he understood, and his master said, when one eye is fixed on your destination, there's only one eye left on which to find the way. Love those Zen masters, don't you? Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful statement of truth, isn't it? A lovely story. We can become so fixated on our end game that we miss golden opportunities that fall before us at our very feet every single day, several times a day. Be here now is what Ram Dass taught us. Be here now. So zeal can be misdirected, and finally, it can be overdeveloped. Have you ever suffered from burnout because you were overzealous? I have. Do I have any soul brothers and sisters in the room? Yes? Oh my gosh, look at you all. Yeah, overzealous. I used to burn out regularly. I would take a new job and I'd be so on fire about it, and then a couple years down the road I would be entirely exhausted and over it. I did the same thing with husbands. Just once. It's good to laugh. It's good medicine. My pleasure to deliver it. I used to become extraordinarily zealous about someone new I met, and I can remember telling my husband how this was the most fantastic person I've ever met in my life, only to find out that they were X, Y, or Z. You know, overly zealous. My husband helped me learn a lot. He taught me in ways that no one else could how to rein it in. How to rein it in so that I didn't burn out. So I didn't set myself up for disappointment. He was a master of steady as you go, right, Dale? Unwavering passion for life that never went up or down like mine. It just stayed right here. Dependable. Love that quality in a human being. I realize now that what I was experiencing was exuberance, not spiritual zeal. You see? Exuberance, but not spiritual zeal. Zeal has to be tempered. It has to be managed by invoking your spiritual powers of understanding and wisdom. Right? As to tempering enthusiasm, Mr. Fillmore got this. In the book that he wrote about our spiritual powers, he suggested that we take a look at a giant train engine. Have you ever watched one starting out? I love trains. And when I lived in Philadelphia, going to the 30th Street train station was such a treat for me. Such a treat. I loved being there. I watched those giant engines taking off. How do they do that? Very slowly. They begin very slowly, and they slowly pick up. They gain momentum. Slowly but steadily until they're moving down the track at whatever high speed they move at. Mr. Fillmore invited us to watch a train engine and be like that. Be that. When I was in seminary at Unity Village years ago, one of the first classes that we had to take was the classes on the 12 powers, spiritual powers. And at the beginning of the class, we were invited by our professor for each of us to choose one power that we wanted to work on that year. That would be our power. That would be the one that would become increased in our awareness. I don't want to say it would grow in us because it's always there. So I want to watch my words. It's not that it's not there. We're just not aware of it. We're not using it, right? So we pick one power. Mine was zeal. I was like, I like that word zeal. It has a nice Z in it. Zeal. Little did I know that it would become one of my trademarks. I realized that. I recognized that. Little did I know that it would become probably one of my favorite spiritual powers, right up there next to imagination. I referred to the book written by Reverend Linda Martella Whitsitt, for those of you who come most of the time. The rest of you, it's a book written by a Unity minister, one of my favorite books right now in print, called Divine Audacity. And it's a book about our spiritual powers, and it's a very practical, lovely, lovely book. I adore that woman. And she talks about zeal, obviously, and she says spiritual zeal is the harnessing of enthusiasm as a propellant into purposeful living. Let me repeat that. Think about this. Zeal, spiritual zeal, is the harnessing of your enthusiasm as a propellant into purposeful living. Zeal. That's what we use it for. In her book, she equates zeal to enthusiasm and audacity. And I agree. The book leads readers to imagine very practical examples of zeal in our contemporary lives. Many of you demonstrate the same kind of zeal that Charles Fillmore demonstrated when he made that statement. Many of you. One of the reasons that I love this community so much is because so many of you practice zeal brilliantly. Brilliantly. Charles Fillmore isn't the only 92-year-old who walks around fairly sizzling with zeal and enthusiasm. Now, I know that you're not all 92. I know that. I do. Please hear me. But most of you are over 60, right? And many of you over 70, and some of you over 80, and a couple of you over 90. And among all of you, there are a lot of people who exemplify zeal, who live enthusiastically. What a blessing to the world. What a master teacher that makes you to all the younger people observing. Never lose sight of the fact that you're being watched. Even when you don't know you're being watched. So the way you live your life is important. I encourage you to consider zeal and live life enthusiastically. Many of you have heard the name Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. In one of his books called The Positive Principle Today, he writes this: think excitement, talk excitement, act out excitement, and you are bound to become an excited person. Life will take on a new zest, deeper interest, and greater meaning. You can think, talk, and act yourself into dullness or into monotony or into unhappiness. By the same process, though, you can build up inspiration, excitement, and a surging depth of joy. Thank you, Dr. Peale. Then in the book, in Linda's book, the other word that she uses synonymously for zeal is audacity. I love that word too. Also a little old-fashioned, not a word that we use in customary and everyday language, is it? Or in conversation generally, audacity. Audacity is boldly proceeding in the direction of our intentions. Audacity is boldly proceeding in the direction of our intentions. When I decided to return to platform ministry at Unity of Port St. Lucie, there were lots and lots of reasons not to. Those of you who know me and know the process know what I'm talking about. I mean, I had an absolutely glorious home in Daytona Beach that I needed to sell, and I had a home full of furniture, and I had a daughter and a son-in-law and 3 grandchildren that I was moving 2 hours away from, and I had a church that I was actively supporting, and there were just a whole list of reasons, but I boldly moved in the direction of my guidance. Boldly, right? We all do that at some point in our lives. That's audacity. One of my heroes, one of my favorite heroes, is my youngest granddaughter, Chrissy, who tried her best to watch this morning. She's studying now in a graduate degree program up in Boston. So it depended on where she was at last night and how much rest she got. But she'll watch it later if she's not watching now. So hi, Chrissy, I love you. Chrissy was when she was younger, she was a big girl. And she decided after she graduated with her bachelor's degree that what she really wanted to do was to become an officer in the Navy. That's what she really wanted to do, ultimately, she decided. So she did some research and she discovered there are a lot of hoops that you have to jump through in order to be accepted into officers training for the United States Navy. And they're difficult, not to mention the studying, because her field is forensic pardon me, Chrissy, I'm going to get it wrong. Forensic science, figuring out who died where and when and how, for example. And so there was a lot of studying involved, and she had to transform her body, friends. I mean, they make it very clear what your weight has to be. They also make it very clear how you have to demonstrate your fitness. And it's not easy. I would never have been able to pass that fitness test, ever. The things they require you to do, among others, the number of push-ups, the number of pull-ups, hello? And this girl was a bookworm like I was when I was her age, truly. But she had a goal. And when Chrissy has a goal, there is nothing going to stand in her way. I lived in a high-rise at that time that had an indoor pool in the bottom. So in the winter months, that girl would come over at 7 a.m. before she went to work, and she started swimming laps. And I remember the first time she came over, I met her there because I had to leave her in. I met her downstairs, and I remember the first time, correct me if I'm wrong someday, Chrissy, but I want to say she did maybe 3 laps. It's hard. It's an Olympic-sized pool. Have you tried to swim a lap nonstop up and down an Olympic-sized pool? You better be in good shape. And she was very young, so I think she did like 3. She came every single solitary day. The older people in my building just were in awe of her. They came to know her. They started to ask me how she was doing. By the time she finished her program, she was doing, 20-some, 30 laps without stopping. A little while later, after she started that program, she went out and took the money she was making on her job and hired herself a personal trainer and showed them the list of things she had to do for the physical, and they started. And that girl went to a gym, and that girl began to work with weights. And I wish I could show you a before and after picture, because you wouldn't recognize the child. She became so strong and so fit. It was unbelievable. And of course, that meant an entire transformation in every way. All of a sudden, she beamed. Do you know what I'm saying? My hero. If that's not an example of audacity, I just don't know what is. Right? I love that in people. I love that in people. I love that in young people. Gives me hope, keeps me going, makes me happy, brings me joy. Audacity. So zeal, enthusiasm, audacity, the forward movement toward living a purposeful, loving, peaceful, respectful life. That's what it's all about, spiritual zeal. What a word. What a power it is. And how exciting to know, friends, how exciting to know that we're such marvelous creatures, that we have these spiritual powers that we can call on and direct and use, not only to better ourselves, but to better the world, because you know as well as I do that the moment that I'm feeling good, everybody around me is too, right? You know that. We have that kind of power. I'm all about let's own it. Let's expand on it. It allows us to shine our Christ light out into the world. To be as good as Jesus was when he was on top of his game. To love our enemies. Find a way. I don't care what it takes. Find it. You can do it. Call me up if you're having trouble. Find a way to care for people less fortunate than you. Find a way to be devoted to God, to all things good. And find a way to do it with zeal. Find a way. Find your joy, friends. And then focus on it. Wallow in it. I have ducks in my pond. I love to watch them wallow in the water. They do, you know. And they're so happy when they're doing it. Talk about zeal. Talk about joy amongst yourself. Use it in conversation. Practice your zeal and light up the world, friends. I want to leave you with the affirmation that Unity Worldwide created for this month around the spiritual power of zeal. I ignite my zeal by focusing on what brings me joy. Right? Can I hear an amen? Amen. Let's say it together loudly and boldly, audaciously. I ignite my zeal by focusing on what brings me joy. One more time. I ignite my zeal by focusing on what brings me joy. And so you do. Thank you very much.
To come true. That you dare to dream, they really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where true bubbles melt like lily drops way above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue. That you dare to dream, they really do come true. Someday That's where you'll find me. Birds fly high over that rainbow, then why, oh why can't I?
I'll bet a lot of you, like me, are picturing Judy Garland singing that in Wizard of Oz. Thank you. And thank you, Reverend Linda. Now's the time in the service when we take out our gifts, our tithes, our offerings. We hold them in our hands and bless them as we say together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I love to give. Stacy Murphy is our prayer chaplain today. She'll be over there after service if you would like to share some affirmative prayer with her. Spiritual discussion. I believe we are meeting Tuesday. Is that right, Commander?
Yes, we are.
Okay, 7 o'clock, right here. Lana, chair yoga, now Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 o'clock here in the sanctuary. And don't forget, we're starting October 9th, which is next Saturday. Wow, okay. Absolute Abundance, 9 to 11.
Unity of Port St. Lucie. Thank you. You're welcome.
Prayer Circle is Thursdays at 11. Next Sunday, Reverend Linda will be here. Mr. Shepherd, do you have any announcements?
Yes, I do. There will be no choir rehearsal this week. So sorry, so sad. We'll be out of town for a little bit. But we'll be back the following Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Please join me as we bless thee, Creator of all that is. We thank you for these donations, these gifts, these tithes. We bless them to the use of Unity of Port St. Lucie, and we bless each person that donated today. And we also hold in prayer all of the requests in the prayer box and the people and situations, for that matter, on our hearts. We ask you to surround it with your love and comfort and healing and peace of mind. And we thank you for all of this. And so it is. Amen. Now would you please stand and join us in our closing song, the Peace Song.